Good morning, everyone, and welcome to session 6 of What is a Raindrop Anyway? And if you're just joining us, that's fine. Each of these sessions kind of stands on its own, and you can always go back and catch the previous ones. So, the last couple of sessions, we've been talking about the first step in a raindrop, which is the Vitaflex. In our last session, we discussed the first two oils that would be Vitaflexed onto the feet. So this morning, we're going to look at the next two oils. So the first ones, the very first oil you use is Valor, which is a beautiful blend, very balancing, very grounding, which is very necessary as the first step of raindrop. And then the second oil we looked at was Oregano, and that one's got some really cool properties as well. And after you Vitaflex in Valor and Oregano, the next oil that you would do would be Thyme. Sorry, looking at my notes here. Let me pull them a little closer so I don't have to go so far. All right, so Thyme is actually the next oil you would use after Oregano. And thyme, of course, is another beloved herb that has been around for centuries. Obviously, I tend to think of thyme as a cooking spice because that's how I most often use it. But in fact, it is mentioned several times in ancient medical texts, including the Ebers Papyrus, which is from ancient Egypt. They definitely used thyme as part of their embalming process. Thyme is also mentioned in Europe's first authoritative guide to medicines, De Materia Medica, and Hildegard's Medicine, which of course was German, and we had mentioned that one previously. So thyme is mentioned in all three of these ancient medical texts. So it was very well known and prized in the ancient world. Thyme's most active constituent is known as Thymol. And Thymol has been used in many over-the-counter products such as mouthwash and vapor rubs because of its purifying agents. So, interesting. It's been used even in modern times, or at least a constituent of thyme has been used even in modern times. So thyme is highly supportive of the body's natural defenses and thus makes a great immune supporter. And that's always good to know what things support our immune system, especially this time of year when all of the nasty things are running around and we're trying to keep our families healthy and well. So thyme is also high in those phenylpropanoids, which remember we mentioned with oregano, which cleanse those cellular receptor sites. And, remember, we need those sites cleaned and not full of junk so that our body communicates properly with itself. You don't want your receptor sites clogged up because then your cells can't get the messages they need to get. And the fragrant influence of thyme basically helps us overcome that fatigue after experiencing an illness. So just the smell of thyme can help us feel a little more energized, which especially after you've been run down during an illness. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, I really do enjoy the smell of thyme. It's a fun one to diffuse. So for Valor, Oregano, thyme, next up is basil. So basil, of course, is another herb that has been around for a very long time. It's been well loved and prized. I personally adore basil. I usually have some growing in my garden. But basil has been used extensively in traditional Asian Indian medicine. So that region is very fond of basil, or at least they were in ancient times. I'm assuming they still are. But basil's name is actually derived from the Greek word for king. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that. So back in the 1500s, powdered basil was actually inhaled to treat migraines and chest infections. So there you go. Basil has been used for a long time and more than just as a cooking spice. But I thought that was fascinating that in the 1500s it was actually used, powdered basil was used to treat migraines. Italian women actually wore basil to attract possible suitors. So, yeah, they went around smelling like basil. And it's also another herb mentioned in the German text Hildegard's medicine. So, yeah, basil's very well known for more than just spaghetti. But basil can be relaxing to muscles and can improve the senses of taste and smell. Personally, I love tasting and smelling basil. So, like I said, I tend to keep it in my garden. And the fragrant influence of basil actually fights off mental fatigue, which is awesome. So, personal story time. Let me tell you how I like to use basil oil personally. So, basil does come in a vitality, so I do tend to cook with it. I mentioned spaghetti earlier. I do love putting basil in my spaghetti. Now, your oils, if you cook with them, remember they're very, very strong, and a little goes a long way. So the first time I made spaghetti sauce, I had read and some of our group posts that you didn't even need a full drop of basil oil in your spaghetti sauce. Just dip a toothpick in your oil, swirl it around in your sauce, and that would be enough. Well, I wasn't sure I believed that because that's hardly anything, but I did it anyway because I figured I could always add more. And it was a good thing I listened because that little toothpick dip and swirl was plenty of basil taste for my spaghetti sauce. If I had done a full drop, I don't know that it would have been edible. So remember, if you're replacing your herbs with essential oils, a little goes a very long way, especially on some of these stronger ones like basil and oregano and thyme. But that was funny. And the other way I like to use basil was, and my friend taught me this because I had driven down to her house, and it's about a 4-hour drive. She's my kid's godmother, so I would bring in the kids down. And when we walked in the door, she had the diffuser running. And it was about nap time, so we were getting the kids settled and fed and all the things. And they went down, and then I had brought my work so that I could get some stuff done while I was there. And I'm trying to work, and she's noticed me yawning my head off. And she's like, "Oh, gal, I'm so sorry." I put in something relaxing in the diffuser because I knew the kids were going to be a little wound up after the drive and we were going to need to get them down. Let me change that out for you. So she changed out what was in the diffuser, and one of the things she had put in there was basil. And as soon as she changed it out, the yawning stopped. And I was able to focus on what I was doing. Instead of typing really slow, my fingers got faster and faster, and I was able to get through my work really quickly. But yeah, one of the oils that she used after that was basil. So now I know to diffuse basil when I'm trying to really focus and get some work done. And I tend to use it on long drives when, especially, after you eat lunch and you're getting kind of sleepy. Yeah, basil's wonderful. So I love basil oil. It's one of my favorites that I keep on hand. All right, and if you're noticing a theme here, yes, you will kind of smell like an Italian eatery after a raindrop because a lot of the herbs we use are those Italian-y type spices and seasonings. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. Remember, we'll continue doing this series on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so next Tuesday, we'll continue going through the oils that are used as part of a raindrop. So I will see you next week. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.